So this was a dream of mine that's become a reality. I really wanted to see these two beautiful souls perform together. And I kept bugging him about it, and didn't look like either of them was going to do anything about it. So finally I was like, well, shit, I'll just organize an event. So that's what this is. And plus, this is one of my favorite times of the year. Super special and sacred time to me, and I know for a lot of people. I hope everybody receives all sorts of nourishment from this evening. And you can leave with nourishment too. There are apples in the hallway there, and some pears, and brown paper sacks. And the Home Orchard Society, a friend of mine, donated all of those. It's also their cider that we're drinking and sipping on, the mulled cider and the cold cider in the kitchen. Thank you to everybody who's helped create this feast. The best bathroom to use is down that hallway there. But if you can't use that one, then head that way and you'll find another one.
Susanna Lee.
Susanna
Lee. Thank you.
I think that's it.
Phone's on silent.
Yeah, phone's on silent.
Thanks, Kat.
Great call.
I got anxiety until I hear it mentioned.
Yes, thank you. I was reminded it is my job. I guess I sort of assume everybody knows who these guys are, but maybe everybody hasn't met each one of them. William Hornyak, Ryan Powell, storyteller and singer, musician extraordinaire as far as I'm concerned, both of them.
Thank you.
One a little bit longer on the path, the other a little bit newer on the path, but both
Which is
deep,
which?
deep souls.
I think that would be me, so.
Got some gray in the beard. Thank you, Salome. Thank you, everyone, for coming out on this beautiful autumn evening. Such a beautiful day. This is a really powerful time of year for me for many reasons, but for one reason is that a year ago today I began the One Route Sacred Ireland journey with a group of travelers in Southwest Ireland. And then several years before that, 2015, was the very first, to this day, Sacred Ireland journey began. So it's a time for me when my spirit is always dreaming through the Southwest Hills of Ireland. And so I'd love this opportunity to sit with Will, this wonderful storyteller, and to share this space and to share some music and song and story that I feel like is food for us. It's nourishment. I think our souls are hungry for the stories, for the songs, for the melodies of these ancestral lands. And I think of it as also nourishment for our ancestors. So we're going to do a little invocation. We're going to start with a little music, and we're going to light a candle for our ancestors. And we'll move into the evening from there. Believe in magic. I believe in tall cliffs. I believe in the wind. believe in walking through the hills with bare feet, feeling the grass and turf under my toes. I believe in the thin places, places where spirits touch heart to heart and hand to hand. I believe in the power of the seasons, the rotation, autumn, winter, spring, summer, autumn, winter. I believe in the thin times of year, where the worlds touch heart to heart and hand to hand. I believe we are in one of those thin times, when our ancestors walk with us arm in arm, hand in hand, heart in heart. I believe in the clear well of water within each of us, and within all beings in this world, even those whose waters have been so muddied by illusion. It's hard to believe there's clean water in there, but there is. I believe it. And I believe in each one of you. I believe we're all here for a reason. Maybe we don't know that yet, what our reason is, but it's there. No hurry, no rush. It comes in its own time. So I'd love to take this opportunity to just think about our ancestors, to invite the well ancestors into this space to receive nourishment from the music and story that we share this evening. So I invite you to think of your well ancestors, your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents. My name is Ryan, son of John, son of John. My name is Ryan, son of Carol, daughter of Helen. And on and on. We light this candle to nourish the flame within each of us, to be a light, to feed our well ancestors who live within us, who live through us, who sing through us, who tells tales through us. I believe this. And I believe in you, and I believe in your ancestors. I believe in a healthy world, a world of justice and balance, a world of peace and harmony with nature. This I believe. L'ombre scrie, ma che le sole sale. Na vecchio sci, niente mocri. L'homme schwarz Spanish clay. Rain becomes silver. Leaves turn to gold. Bellon wyszła Magella sola suddenly. Navekioshis ermiantumokri. Bellon wyszła Sunbanish clay. Rain becomes silver. Leaves turn to gold. Cloth become amber. Winter snow. Bellon wyszła Magella sola suddenly. Navekioshi ermiantumokri. Bellon wyszła Sunbanish clay. Rain becomes silver. Leaves turn to gold. Cloth become amber. Wind turn to snow. Thank you. I feel y'all so much. Thank you.
I get to follow that, huh? I hate to follow real talent. It's just, Jesus, thanks a lot, bro.
So do I, so it's going to be a rough night.
No, good deal. Well, our wonderful host, this Sana Lee, who gathered us all together, she asked about some harvest stories, and there's one that I hadn't thought of it, but it's, until now, it actually is a harvest story. It's about a person who'd been sowing for a long time, and then finally his harvest came in. You know, sometimes we don't know what we're sowing until we harvest it. We go, oh, this is what I've been doing all my life. Right. That's kind of confusing. Anyway, this is a tale from Ireland, and there's a saying in Ireland that a story is a seed, just a seed, nothing more than a seed. But if it finds good ground in the willing ear and the open heart of people, it can root and shoot and flower and fruit right in front of our eyes. And I want to thank you for coming here tonight and being the ground for these stories. So Sláinte, welcome all of you. In Ireland, there's a county called County Roscommon. In County Roscommon, a town called Ballahadreen. You want to try that one on? Ballahadreen. Ballahadreen. It's a very important part of the tale, actually. And if you go to Ballahadreen, I'm told, I haven't been there, but I'm told that there is, or at least there was, a town square. And in the square there was a statue of a man who was a peddler. And you could see he didn't have very many things in his sack. It was a rather thin sack. And he was being followed by 3 stray dogs. And you could tell they were strays because you could see the ribs right through their skin. And this is the tale of that peddler of Ballahadreen. They say he was a good man, a kind-hearted man. And every day he'd put this sack on his back and he'd walk the rocky roads of Common Roscommon and of County Roscommon. And whenever he came to a square, a fair, a crossroads, wherever some people gathered, he would spread out his wares and he'd call out, pots and pans for sale, needles, knives, ribbons, bows, come buy them here. Well, you know how it is. Oftentimes it'd be a boy, a 10-year-old boy that would come up and pick up something and say, peddler, how much for this pocket knife? Now the peddler, he knew right away if that boy could afford that knife, because he often peddled among very poor people. And oftentimes, when he realized that boy could never afford such a knife, he'd say something like, lad, you know that knife? Why, that knife, for some reason, has been doing nothing but weighing me down for months. I've been looking for somebody to take it off my hands, just to lighten my load a little bit. Why would you do that for me? And what do you think he'd say? I would, sir. I would. And that boy would take that knife and he'd run off and he'd be so happy. And the peddler of Ballahadreen would take a bit of his happiness for his payment. He gave away a lot more than he sold. And who do you think noticed that? The townspeople. Can you be the townspeople for me? It's really easy. Just fold your arms and shake your heads and scowl. Right. And then here's what you say. You have to say, peddler's a fool.
Peddler's a fool.
Giving away more than he sells.
Giving away more than he sells.
A fool and his money.
A fool and his money.
Are soon parted.
Are soon parted.
You're good at that. But the fact of the matter is, you see, the townspeople, they were actually right. Townspeople are often right about things like that, you see, because when the peddler made his way home, he'd be followed by the stray dogs, and most people would just shoo curs like that away. But not that peddler. He'd stop, reach into his sack, he'd pull out some moldy bread, some old cheese, he'd feed the strays, and then he'd make his way home. He lived at the crossroads near the town of Ballahadreen in a mud and wattle hut. They say it was so small that in the hut he could darn his socks and cook his stirabout and go to sleep without ever taking more than 2 steps. But outside his hut, he had a fine garden, and right in the midst of it, a beautiful cherry tree. And everybody knew that peddler's cherries, they were bigger, sweeter, more abundant, more beautiful than any cherry in all of County Roscommon and well beyond. Everybody knew it. And nobody knew it better than the blackbirds. They'd come swooping out of the sky. They'd eat half of them up, And the peddler, he'd allow the rabbits to come out of the fields and chew upon the potatoes and the carrots and the neighbors. Can you be the neighbors? Yes, there you go. You fold your arms and you shake your heads and you scowl and you say, ready, shoo 'em away.
Shoo 'em away.
Critters are robbing you blind.
Critters are robbing you blind.
There's nothing robbing me. Nothing sings as sweetly as a bird in that tree of mine. The rabbits are good company. I get lonely sometimes, you know. But they would tell the peddler, you'll have nothing to peddle someday, man. You'll have nothing to eat or go to bed cold and hungry. And you know what? The neighbors were.
Right.
They were. Come a winter. Snow came early, it stayed late. And at last, that peddler, he had nothing to peddle. And he had nothing to eat. And every night now, he went to bed hungry and cold and cold and hungry and hungry and cold. And if you've ever done that, you know that you're bound to have an amazing dream. And didn't he see in his dream St. Patrick himself standing at the foot of his bed? And in the dream, St. Patrick says, peddler, man, get up. Get up now. Walk out the door. Walk to Dublin. Find the Liffey Bridge and stand there, man. And you'll hear what you're to hear. Now, man, get up and go. And the peddler, you know, fool that he was, he listened to the dream. Can you imagine? He puts on this thin rag of a coat, he makes his way out the door. But the wind just cut right through. It was so cold. He turned around, he went to sleep. The next night, St. Patrick appears again. He says, peddler, man, he says, I'm telling you, now get yourself to Dublin. Find the Liffey Bridge, stand there. And that night, the peddler, he got up and put on the thin rag of a coat, he got out there. And he walked down the road and the wind cut through him. But it was the hunger. He was so weak. And he turned around and went to sleep. How many nights do you think it took?
3.
Exactly. And St. Patrick appears, he says, peddler, I'm telling you now, and I'm not going to be telling you again, you've got to get yourself to the Liffey Bridge. Stand on it there, man, and you'll hear what you're to hear. Now go. And he got up and he walked out, but it was cold, and he was hungry. But he just put one foot in front of the other, and another in front of the other, and he walked for 3 days. And he found Dublin. And just as the sun was coming up, the peddler found the Liffey Bridge, and he stood on it. He'd never been to the city before, and he watched now as people were coming back this way across the bridge, going to the markets, and they were trading this way and going to the fairs, and trading this way, going to the shops, and all day long the peddler, he listened and watched and waited, and listened and waited and watched and waited and listened, listened and waited, listened and listened and waited and listened. And by day's end, no one had said a word to him. For the first time in his life, the peddler of Ballahadreen was truly, truly afraid. Because he knew he didn't have the strength to walk all the way back to Ballahadreen. He only had the strength to make his way off the bridge, to find an alley sheltered from the cold. And he lay down, and just as his head touched the cold cobbled stones, he was asleep. And that was to be the final sleep the peddler of Ballahadreen ever slept. Had not the innkeeper come around the corner. It's called a pregnant pause. Dramatic interlude. This innkeeper, you know, finely dressed, comes around the corner. The innkeeper who had an inn at the foot of the Liffey Bridge. The innkeeper who'd been watching out his window all day long, watching this man standing on the bridge. Not peddling, not begging, just standing in the stiff breeze. And he looks down and says, well, now that's where you've come to. I've been watching out my window all day long, man. Standing like a fool on the Liffey Bridge. Now, you weren't peddling, you weren't begging. What on earth were you doing, man? The peddler couldn't even speak. It was so weak. Come with me. The innkeeper took him to his inn. He sat him down. He gave him a bowl of stew. He gave him a pint. And the peddler ate the best meal he'd eaten in months. When he finished, the innkeeper says, now, man, I've satisfied your hunger. You can satisfy my curiosity. How is it with you, man? How is it with you? What were you doing all day long on the bridge? And the peddler, he said, well, I had a dream, you see. And in my dream, a voice, well, it spoke to me, you see. And without even listening to the end of the tale, the innkeeper, he just laughed. He said, look at you, man. You're a bag of bones. You're daft, running off when some voice in a dream tells you to. Man, every man has dreams. But you don't go running off when some voice tells you to. I don't know who you are, man, but I know this much. You got to get home and care for yourself. I've saved your life. I can't do that again. The peddler knew he was right. He thanked the innkeeper for saving his life, for feeding him. And he bid him farewell, and just as he walked out the door, the innkeeper said, but man, wait a moment. Come back. You know, I just remember that dream of yours. It reminds me of a dream I had years ago. In my dream, St. Patrick himself, he spoke to me. And didn't he say, middle of a cold winter night, innkeeper, he says, get up and walk to the town of Balahadreen, it was, wherever on God's earth that is. And in the dream he said, you'll find a mud and wattle hut at a crossroads and a cherry tree beside it. And if you were to dig beneath it, you'd unearth a chest of gold. Aye. Now where would I be? An innkeeper, a man of means, if I listened to nonsense like that. And the peddler, he said, man, I don't really know where you'd be. But to himself, he said, I damn well know where I should be. Didn't the peddler of Balahadreen make his way home in 2 days and 2 nights? And didn't he find his own spade leaning against his own hut? He did. Oh, and he took it. And right beneath his own cherry tree and his own spreading front yards, well, he dug and he dug and he dug, and oh, he hit something. He brushed away the dirt and he unearthed a huge wooden chest. And when he opened it, it brimmed and brimmed, full of pure gold Spanish doubloons. And from that day, the peddler of Balahadreen lived free from want. But they say all of the good and the grand and the fine things he did for this world with that gold is the stuff of 100 stories. And I know for a fact that all of those stories, just like this one, well, they finally do come to an end, you know. And that's the end of the story known as The Peddler of Balahadreen, County Roscommon, Ireland.
That was a lovely tale, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Well
Thanks for the
told.
accompaniment. That's nice.
Well told. My pleasure. Yeah. Hope this is the first of many times we get to do this together. May it be so. May it be so.
Murray Mack or John Barleycorn?
Sure.
Which one do you think?
John Barleycorn
Okay.
sounds good.
So, kind of in the idea of the harvest idea, they say that this is the time of year when the sickle and the scythe lay the wheat shaft and the corn stalk low. But the grain finds new life again in the oat cake, in the bread, and the bannock, and in the awishkaba. Right? And awishkaba is an Irish word which literally means the water of life. And that's the word that our word whiskey comes from. The Irish awishkaba. Indeed. And this time of year, there's a song often sung because it's the tale of the seed and the growing and the harvest and the transformation of the grain into an inspiring beverage. And it's called Sir John Barleycorn.
Oh, yes.
It first came out in 600 AD, even before the band Traffic made it famous. Goes like so. There were 3 men come out of the west, their fortunes for to try. And these 3 men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn must die. They plowed, they sowed, they harrowed him down, threw clods upon his head. And those 3 men then did swear, John Barleycorn was dead. So they let him lie for a very long time, till rain from heavens did fall. Then little Sir John poked up his green head, and so surprised them all. Well, he grew and he grew till midsummer's day, he grew so pale and wan. And then Sir John sprouted a beard, as he grew so tall and strong. Then came the men with the sharpest size, and they cut him down at the knees. They turned him over and bound him up, they treated him most barbarously. Then came men with sharp pitchforks, and they pierced John to the heart. And the loader, he treated him worse than that, for he bound him to his cart. Then came men with the clubs and sticks, and they pounded John's flesh from his bones. And the miller served him worse than that, for he ground John between two stones. Ah, but little Sir John, he refused to die. He proved the stronger man at last. For didn't he become the good brown ale and the whiskey in my glass? Oh, he did become the good brown ale and the whiskey in your glass. And so when the reaper comes for your field, be ye not so forlorn, but remember this tale and raise a glass to Sir John Barleycorn. Sir John Barleycorn.
We're going to take a little trip over to the Scottish Isles, to this lovely little song written by Dougie MacLean. It also mentions whiskey.
Was it?
It does.
How rare.
Other things as
Many
well.
do.
How rare.
Scottish song on whiskey. How did that happen?
Where'd you get that one? So rare. You can join along in the chorus if you'd like. This is a sing-along. Chorus. I feel so near to the howling of the wind. I feel so near to the crashing of the waves. I feel so near to the flowers in the field. I feel so near. So just join in whenever you feel it. You find me sitting at this table, my friend Finn and my friend John. Friend Will Hornyak tells a story. Things long gone, long gone. We may take a glass together. Whiskey makes it all so clear. Fires our dull imagination. And I feel so near, so near. Feel so near to the howling of the wind. Feel so near to the crashing of the waves. Feel so near to the flowers in the fields. I feel so near. The old man looked out to the island. Said this place is dreadful thin. There's no real distance here to mention. We might all fall in, all fall in. Distance to the spirits of the living. Distance to the spirits of the dead. As he turned, his eyes were shining, as he proudly said, I feel so near to the howling of the wind. Feel so near to the crashing of the waves. Feel so near to the flowers in the fields. I feel so near. So we build our tower constructions here to mark our place in time. justify our great destruction. As on we climb. Now the journey doesn't seem to matter. The destination's faded out. Gathered out along the headlands, I hear the children shout. I feel so near to the howling of the wind. Feel so near to the crashing of the waves. Feel so near to the flowers in the fields. Feel so near. Feel so near to the howling of the wind. Feel so near to the crashing of the waves. I feel so near to the flowers in the fields. I feel so near. Thank you for singing, friends. Yeah. Will, my friend, do you have a tale for us?
Well, since we're in Scotland,
We're in Scotland.
we do that. So I'm glad Ryan mentioned thin times, and of course we're coming up to Samhain, which is one of the thinnest times of the year. And as well as thin times, there's also thin places, you know. And some people call places like that haunted places, and some call them holy places. No matter what you call them, you know they're places where you should have a care. And among the thinnest places in the world are the moors of Scotland. And this is a tale from the moor country, and way out on the moors, which is the home to solitary creatures, the wild crane, you know. But there are certain people that favor that kind of place. And among them, there was a solitary beekeeper. It was just himself and his horse, and he was living in the stone hut that he had made, and a thickly thatched roof he'd made tight against the weather. And this beekeeper, for some reason, his beehives were so abundant and the honey was so rich, people would say sometimes, "Beekeeper, what is it about you? Do you speak the language of the bloody bees or something?" He'd say, "Oh, no, I don't speak that language." He goes, "But I know what they need. I know how to care for them, and they care for me. We care for one another, you know." It was a day in summer when the sun was high. It was a waxing summer day, and the bees were buzzing about the hives. When that beekeeper, he just noticed something. He could see something was moving quickly through the heather. And right out of the heather, coming right to where he was, there was a beautiful brown hare. And this beekeeper, he loved animals. He'd never been so close to a wild creature like that. And he was amazed because it allowed him to bend down and it put his hands right over its ears. And just as he did that, a voice came from out of nowhere. But it was a voice without a dram of kindness or warmth in it. And the voice said, "'Tis my creature. That's my creature, and you'll be giving it back to me now." The beekeeper, he turned and he saw this man who just come out of nowhere. He had a blackthorn cane. He was waving it, you know. "'Tis mine. You'll be giving it back to me now." And with that, the hare leapt from the ground into the beekeeper's lap, tried to burrow itself in his canvas coat there. He tried to make light of it. He said, "Well, it looks like it appears to want to be with me." And the man said, "You'll be giving it back now." The fact of the matter was the beekeeper didn't want to give the hare back to this man. But there was something about him he didn't trust. But at the same time, there was something about him he did fear. But in the end, it wouldn't be the beekeeper or that man who would decide what happened. Because just as that man with the blackthorn cane took a bold step towards the beekeeper, the beehives erupted. Thousands and thousands of bees came flooding around this man. And they wouldn't let him move this way or that way. Then they didn't sting him, they didn't touch him. And he was swatting away at him with a blackthorn. But they wouldn't let him move. Finally, he says, "So this is how it is now. He says, I'll tell you something, beekeeper. I'll be coming for you in the cold weather when the bees aren't about to protect you. And I'll be getting what's mine, and you'll be getting your due. Mark my words. And the beekeeper, he looked down and he put the hair down and he looked up and the man had just disappeared, just wafted off. He was gone. And the beekeeper, he says, no, go. You're fine now. You're safe now. Go to the hill. He didn't go. Stayed there all day while he worked in the hives. When he made his way in the wagon back to the stone hut, it was right behind him. Stayed outside the door all night long. Within a few days, the beekeeper had let it into the house. Fed it scraps. Became his constant companion, you see. But time passed, you know how it is. The sun now, it began its great circling down, and the days grew cold. And the bees, they returned to the hives after their long summer of work. But the beekeeper was busier than ever. For now he had the jars of honey, and wasn't he making his way to fair and festival and market? And coming home one evening at dusk, which is when all the good stuff happens, right? At twilight. With his wagon there and the horse, he notices coming down the road, he notices a feed sack, a canvas feed sack, the kind that you put around a horse so it can feed itself, grain itself while it's still walking. Now, most people wouldn't think twice about an old feed sack laying in the mud in the road, but the beekeeper, he loved animals. And he knew somewhere, some horse wouldn't be getting its grain. So down from the wagon he goes and he picks up the feed bag and he spurs the horse on and he rides well past the cut to his own place. And finally he sees there's a wagon. It's the curved wagon and a fire beside it. It's the wagon of a tinker. And he comes in and sure enough, it's the tinker who has the horse and he's lost the feed bag and he's more than grateful. And he says, man, come and sup with me. Eat some of my stir-about within my stew, for you saved my horse 5 days of grain. The least I can do is feed you for one. Well, the beekeeper was happy to have company, so he had a little of that. And he sat down with his tinker. And as he was eating his stew, perhaps because of the smell of it, the hair, which he always kept in his coat there, didn't it poke its nose out there? And the tinker says, man, what have you got there? The beekeeper tells him the whole story. Says, this is the hair. Came out of the heather. Yeah, a man with a blackthorn cane said he'll be coming for it. It's been like a pet to me ever since. And the tinker says, I've never seen a hair with blue eyes. For it had beautiful blue eyes. And the beekeeper says, well, I guess you have now. And the tinker says, well, have I? And he goes to the back of the wagon and he says, Grandmother, come, take a look at this. And this door opens and out comes this woman who's older than time itself. She comes down with these watery grey eyes. And she very gently puts her hands over the hair and feels the bone. And she says, how'd you come by this? And he says, well, I was out working the hives. You see, I'm a beekeeper. She says, you speak their language? He says, no, but I know what they need. I care for them. She says, well, that's good. He told her the whole tale of the man with the blackthorn cane. And then she says, now listen to me. What you got there? 'Tis no hair. What it is, I don't know. Something he's bewitched, and he'll come for it. For I've seen that man before. He's not one of us. Not among the living, I mean. You see, he's neither living nor dead. He's in the in-between. And 'tis those are the ones that have the greatest power and the most unholy of hunger, and he'll come for it. When his power is the greatest, he'll come on the eve of Samhain. And if you have a mind to keep it, you must get yourself far away from where you are now. And you must bind that hair to you. And if somehow the two of you can survive the night, you just might break the spell he has upon it. The beekeeper had a rather sober, somber ride home. And of course, as he was riding home, He began to reason. He began to reason perhaps it wasn't such a good idea to take such a great risk for a hare. He began to reason, after all, wasn't a hare a creature of the wild, and wouldn't it be better off in the wild heather where it came from? And you know how it is, he began to reason this, and he began to reason that. But you see, that beekeeper, way back then and there, he was a lot like many of us right here and now, not entirely reasonable. It wasn't reason that found him on the day of Samhain, putting the oatcakes in the sack and preparing the horse and hitching him up to the wagon. It was far from reason that found him getting the flask with the whiskey and the tea. Far from reason that found him binding the hare to him and putting the coat around him. For we are driven by far darker, deeper things than reason. And sure enough, he made his way across the moors and up and up and up, higher and higher and higher into the hills. All day long they travelled. And you could hear the sound of the boron playing as they did. Isn't that lovely? On and on they went, you see. The day waxed on, but at last the sun began to set. And at a certain point the wind began to blow. And just like that, the horse stopped. And no amount of urging could make him continue. And just like that, rain began to fall. And the wind picked up to become a gale. And the rain became ice and hail and began to cut through that poor beekeeper like knives. Snow fell and a darkness descended so thick and deep you couldn't see your hand before your face. And the wind howled and he held as much as he could through all of that. But it was neither darkness nor hail nor wind nor cold that would break him in the end. What would break him was what he held closest to him. For whatever that was, now, it began to screech and wail. It began to bite at him like a wildcat, to scratch at him like a lion. It howled like a banshee at times. And then at times it became cold as ice, it numbed him. And at times it was like fire that scalded and burned him. And yet he held it, and he held it, and he held it with all his strength. He held, and he held, and he held well past his strength was gone. But at last he could hold no longer. And he finally had to let go. And as he did, he looked up and he saw the moon at that moment when he let go break free from a dark cloud. And he saw the light of the moon filter upon the meadow. That was the last thing that gentle beekeeper would remember until he woke up the next day. In the morning, every muscle in his body ached. He was half dead. And he looked about. And he saw the horse there grazing. He was laying on the turf there, and then he realized that his head was being cradled. And he looked up and he saw a woman looking down at him with the most beautiful blue eyes he'd ever seen. And she said, "It was me. It was me that you've been caring for and protecting. It was me you held through all of that last night. It was you that broke the spell that stranger had upon me, for I couldn't do it myself. But you were the only one that could hold me through all of that. For he's gone now. It's broken, I know that." But the beekeeper said, "No, it wasn't me. I don't know what it was, but I let go. I couldn't hold any longer." She said, "Not to worry. It's gone. It's done." And she lifted up his head and she put the tea with the whiskey to his lips and he drank. She helped him to the wagon. It was she who took the wagon from the heights all the way down to the moors. And late in the afternoon, they found the stone hut. They went inside. She filled the kettle. She put it on the fire. They were sitting beside a warming turf fire as darkness fell. And that's when a knock came to the door. And the beekeeper, he shuddered. But she said, no, not to worry. He did worry. He worried as he got up. He worried as he went to the door. He was terrified as he undid the latch. And then he opened the door, and it was the tinker. It was the tinker on his doorstep there. And the tinker said, "Beekeeper, I thought you might want to know that man that troubled you, the one with the blackthorn cane. He was found this morning out on the moors, quite dead. Strangest thing was this. He was stung to death by bees. Thousands of bees. Who would ever believe such a thing? Bees out on a night like that." Well, there were some that didn't believe it. There were some that did. What was much easier to believe was, about a year later, a wedding was held. For the woman fancied the beekeeper, and he much more than fancied her. And they did it, you see, when the sun was high in the sky, and when the bees were buzzing around the hives. And of course, the music was lovely, and many a tale was told. And you know, some think that wedding is still going on. And I think all of us are invited. And that's the tale of the beekeeper and the blue-eyed hare from Scotland.
So I don't know about you all, but I can just feel each one of our souls absorbing the nourishment from those stories.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really deep. It's
You know,
food.
just one quick word. Ryan mentioned ancestors earlier, and I've always thought the old stories, the traditional tales, the fables, the myths, the fairy tales, they are like the voices of ancestors, you know, because they actually are the compressed experiences over hundreds and hundreds of years of many people. And I think as we bring ourselves to them and hear them and bring them into our own imagination, you know, we can feel the wisdom and the wit and the cunning and the messages in them too. So, and I want to thank all of you, because the most important thing in a story is actually your imagination, right? That's where all the work's going on. So what we're doing together.
And yeah, thank you, Will. Since we were talking about the traveling folk, the Tinkers, I have a song about these good people. This is a song by the great Ewan MacColl. It's called The Freeborn Man of the Traveling People. And if you don't know of the Tinkers and the Travelers, they're a tribe of people who choose a roaming life. They travel in caravans across the country of Ireland and Scotland. And they camp out under the stars, they circle up their wagons. They're very discriminated against in modern culture. They have a very hard time when it comes to coming into the city, trying to buy something in the store, trying to go into a pub. They're just stepped on, kicked out left and right. Really, really hard discrimination. There's a story of a charitable organization that went and bought this great mansion for a traveling family near Galway. So they bought this great mansion and said, "Traveling family, we have a wonderful home for you. Go live in it." And the traveling family said, "Thank you so much." And they took all of the stuff they had gathered and collected and they piled it into the house. And they went on traveling. Thank you for the storage. We really needed that. So this is a song about the kind of the coming of the modern age and how much more difficult it's becoming to live that traveling life. man of the traveling people. Got no fixed abode, with nomads I am numbered. Country lanes and byways were always my way. I never fancied being lumbered. Well, we knew the woods and the resting places, and the small birds sang when winter time was over. We pack our load and be on the road. Those were good old days for the rover. So all you freeborn men of the traveling people, every tinker, rolling stone and gypsy rover, winds of change are blowing, old ways are going. Your traveling days will soon be over. In the open ground where a man could linger for a week or two, for time was not our master. And away we jog with our horse and dog, nice and easy, no need to go faster. Well, I've known life hard and I've known life easy, and I've cursed the nights when winter winds were storming, but I've danced and sung through the whole night long, seen the summer sunrise in the morning. So all you freeborn men of the traveling people, every tinker, rolling stone and gypsy rover, winds of change are blowing, old ways are going. Your traveling days will soon be over. So all you freeborn men of the traveling people, every tinker, rolling stone and gypsy rover, winds of change are blowing, old ways are going. Your traveling days will soon be over. Your traveling days will soon be over. Travel on, traveler, travel. Thanks. The hard part of that is getting through it without crying. So. I didn't succeed.
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Can I do some drumming with you with that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
So we want you to sing with us on this tune, and when people sing with me, I have two rules. The first one is volume, okay, and the next one is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You don't have to be on key, but volume and enthusiasm. Yeah, I'm half Irish. My mother was Irish, and the Irish believe there are very few things that can't be improved with volume and enthusiasm. All right? So I want you to join me on the chorus. All right, the chorus is very simple. It's an old Irish folk song called Mary Mac, and the chorus goes like this. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary Mac. Gonna marry for my marriage to take care of me. Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry Mac. Well, a ring die diddle 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 diddle. Now, are you ready?
Yep.
Everyone got it. All right.
More Tullamore do, everybody. We'll make this work. We'll break it down a little bit. So I'll just sing Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me, and you just roll back to me. My father's making me Mary Mac. Want to try it again? My father's making me Mary Mac. And I'll sing, gonna marry for my Mary to take care of me. And you'll sing, we'll all be making merry when I marry Mac. Oh, you guys got this. And if you want to sing the whole bloody thing, feel free to do that, okay? Now, if you get confused, sing louder, okay? No one will know the difference, right?
Thanks, Sarah.
It's a hell of a philosophy of life, but it works.
When you're among friends.
That's right, when you're among friends. There's a nice wee lass, and her name is Mary Mac. Make no mistake, she's a girl I'd like to take. A lot of other chaps would like to follow in her track, but I'm thinking that they'll have to get up early. Well, Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary Mac. Gonna marry for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry Mac. Mary and her mother go an awful lot together. In fact, you hardly ever see the one without the other. So people wonder whether it's Mary or her mother, or the both of them together that I'm courting. Well, Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary Mac. Gonna marry for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry Mac. Well, the wedding's on a Wednesday and everything's arranged. Her name will soon be changed, mine unless her mind has changed. With making these arrangements, I'm just about to arrange. A marriage is an awful undertaking. Well, Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me.
My father's making me Mary Mac.
Gonna marry for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry Mac. Well, it's sure to be a grand affair, and grander than a fair. There'll be a coach and pepper rich and every pair that's there will dine upon the finest fare. I'm sure to get my share. If I don't, then I'll be very much mistaken. Well, Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me.
My father's making me Mary Mac.
Gonna marry for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry Mac. Well, Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me.
My father's making me Mary Mac.
Gonna marry for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be making
Mary when I marry Mac.
Well, I'll be making Mary when I marry
Mac.
Bloody wonderful. Wow, drumming. That's the best.
That's awesome.
That's the best. Jeez.
That's a good song for the drum.
That's fantastic.
Well, I was, my last name is Hornyak, which is Hungarian, but my mother was Irish, so I'm Irish and Hungarian, and a friend of mine was Irish said, that's a bloody disaster. He says, Jesus, Irish and Hungarian. It's like a passionate tragedy wrapped in a lyrical disaster. Be that as it may, you know. I was raised in an Irish Catholic parish. Went to 8 years of Catholic grade school, 4 years of Jesuit high school, 4 years of a Jesuit university, which provided me with enough guilt and enough neuroses, right, to fund therapists for years, right, to provide the raw material for art for the rest of my life. And this is one of the stories that it's actually it was Tibetan tale that I put an Irish frame around it because it works perfectly. And this has kind of been a therapy tale for me as a recovering Catholic, from which you never truly recover. I've tried. And anyway, it was years ago. There were two neighbors, Mary and Moira, lovely, lovely women. They were probably in their, early mid-30s. Their husbands had both died in the Great War, in the First World War, and so they were without husbands, and they were lonely. And they were lovely, lovely women, and they farmed a field together. They both worked it together, and they lived at the edge of town. They both had a little whitewashed hut with a thatched roof, and they were planting the field one day, planting the spuds on their hands and knees, And as they were coming up to the stone wall, they were laughing and laughing because they were talking about among their favorite subjects, which was penises, actually. And, as, you know, they were talking about their husbands and, you know, what a lovely thing a penis was, and, you know, and how they missed penises, and they were just laughing. It was penis this and penis that. You know. And, they didn't notice, you see, as they were talking, that coming down the lane towards them was Father Peter O'Connell, a man utterly opposed to any pleasures of the flesh whatsoever. And they didn't notice, because they were laughing and planting spuds, that he was standing right in front of them now. And all of a sudden he looks down and says, well, good morning, ladies. And they look up, and they're so embarrassed. And their embarrassment kind of confuses their words, you know, when they say, good morning, Father Penis. No! Good morning, Father Peter. Good morning, Father Peter. Good morning. It's so lovely to see you. Father Peter, good morning. I heard what you said. Not only that, I've been listening to your confessions for years now. And it's time the two of you learned a lesson. If it's penises you want, it's penises you'll be getting. Watched as the priest, he stretched his hand out over the field. And he said, Lord Almighty, I pray that from this day forward, this field never produce another potato, that it produce nothing but penises. And they said, no, Father, don't curse the field. Because there is nothing more powerful than the curse of a priest, you see. Oh, but what Father Peter O'Connell had made up his mind, you know, in Israel, he had made up his mind, hadn't he?
He had.
He knows him well.
Oh, yes.
Down the lane he thundered away, and Mary and Mary didn't know what to think, you know, they just didn't know. But every day they come to the field and they kind of look down. Now, how many here have been to Ireland? Oh, many of you have, and you know the Irish earth is rich and is fecund and is fertile, and it'll grow potatoes, tomatoes, apples, persimmons, and it'll grow penises. And didn't they go out one day to see a few just poking their little heads through? And they were beside themselves, you know? Because with the good Irish sun and the wind and the rain, they grew and they grew and they grew. Some were little wee ones in front and some small and a little bigger in the back. And didn't you have some large ones waving back and forth in the back there? And they didn't know what to do because they'd be destitute. What can you do with a field of penises? You know, all they ever had to eat or to sell was potatoes. They didn't know what to do. And they were just about to tear their hair out one day when who should they see coming down the lane but the one man who might be able to offer some advice on this particular situation. It was Peddler Tim himself. Peddler Tim, who was a bit of a man of the world because he peddled the 5-county region round, you know. And he had the donkey behind him filled with the wares that he sold. And he did what he always did. He came up to their farm there and he tied the horse off at the tree and he packed his pipe and he came across and said, so ladies, how are you today now, Mary and Myra? How are the potatoes growing? You're not growing potatoes this year, are you? Is that a penis field? They look healthy. And they said, Tim, we're destitute. The priest, he cursed the field. We don't have any potatoes. We're going to die. We don't know what to do. What can we do with that? And he said, no, ladies. You know, if there's one thing that my trade as a peddler has taught me, is that in this world, there is a market for just about everything. Now, it might take me a while to find the market for that. But I tell you what. Why don't you pluck a few up and give them to me on consignment, so to speak, and I'll see what I can do. And they said, oh, Tim, would you do that? He said, of course, I'd be happy. So they plucked a few of them up, and some they put in little socks, you know, and wrapped them up in little socks. Some they had to use napkins for. Some they had to cut a bloody blanket in half. You know, and away, you know, Tim went, you know, and of course he was peddling, you know, near and far and wide, and every day he'd set the wares out, you know, pots and pans for sale, penises, knives, you know. There was a great deal of interest, but no sales to speak of, you know. Until one day, it was getting on late, and most of the people had gone off to supper, and he was just about to pack up the wares, and he hears someone whisper, "Tim, oh, peddler Tim, how much would that penis there, the one lying in the corner last, that large one, how much would that one be?" And he looks at it. Oh my. It's Mother Superior. And she says, I've never had one, Tim, but I hear they can be a fine thing, and I just had a bit of a curiosity about them, you know. And I said, "Well, Mother, you know, that penis there now, that would fetch a fair price anywhere. But I tell you what I'll do, I'll give it to you for half price. And if you like the merchandise, if you could just let some of your colleagues at the convent know." And she said, "Tim, I'd be happy to do that, you know." And so she pays him and she takes it. But she hasn't gone too far, and she calls me and says, Tim, I forgot to ask you, does it come with a little booklet or something? Never had one before, and I don't really know how to operate. I says, oh, Mother, nothing easier to operate than one of those. First, you need to know that if you keep it in a safe place, you put it in a box, you know. Don't let the dogs or the cats get it, because they'll chew it up and bury it, you know. And keep it in places sort of cool and dry, you know, and when you want to use it, you just find yourself a comfortable place, lay down and put the box out, and then you just cry out, "Go, penis, go!" And it'll just jump out and you know exactly what to do. Go, penis. What do they say? Can you try that? Ready? Go, penis, go! It's quite a bit of experience here, Ryan. I can see. Well, now. And so did she take it home and have a lovely evening. And she awoke refreshed, and she went on to do great works of charity for the people, you see. Well, she began to spread the word here and there, you see. And pretty soon, Mary and Moira were making much more money selling penises than they would have made in a lifetime selling potatoes. And not only that, but the nuns there, they gained a reputation as being women that were quite joyful, and quite giving and loving, and so much so that even in his sermons, sometimes the priest there, Father Peter O'Connell, he would say, "See what happens when women turn away from the pleasures of the flesh, dedicate themselves entirely to Jesus." And of course the exact opposite was true. But the Lord was being served, and everything was going along swimming. Until it was the week of the great convocation, when all the religious came to the great meeting place. And of course Mother Superior, wouldn't she be invited, of course, and she came. And in her haste of packing, she forgot to pack her penis. She did. And you know, if you've been used to that, after a few days, she began to miss it a little bit. And so she sent one of the houseboys back to find it. And she said, "Now, it's in a box beneath my bed. Don't be opening it up, or you'll know eternal damnation." But it's something that I require for my nocturnal adoration, you see. And the houseboy, he was a good boy. He never would have opened up the thing. And he went there, and sure enough, he knocked on the door. The nuns opened it, and he found the box. And he was walking down the road. Well, it was several hours' walk back to the convocation. And who was coming up behind him in the wagon, you see? Coming late to the convocation, but Father Peter.
Oh, yes.
And wouldn't he be offering a ride to the boy? Yes. Of course he would. And now you could see them. There was the houseboy, and there was Father Peter O'Connell, and there was the box with the penis in it right between the two of them. And Father Peter O'Connell picked up the reins, right? And of course, who was pulling the cart but his favorite horse, who was named after his favorite saint, Pius. And he said, "Go, Pius, go! Go, Pius, go!" Now, to a penis in a box, "Go, Pius, go," sounds an awful lot like "Go, penis, go." And since penises don't hear that well, didn't come flying out of that box, looking for some object of its affection. You know? And it found Father Peter O'Connell. And a minor but essential detail that you need to know is that in those days, you see, the priests, they wore robes, not hats. Without getting too deeply into details, suffice it to say, it took every bit of Father Peter O'Connell and the houseboy's strength to persuade that penis that Father Peter O'Connell was not an appropriate object for its affections. They had to pound it black and blue with a stone. And they dropped it into the box. And Father Peter O'Connell and the houseboy rode in a rather stony silence.
Imagine so.
The next morning, Mother Superior was summoned to the office. She walked in. There was Father Peter O'Connell, and there was the box. She told him the entire tale from beginning to end. And when Father Peter O'Connell realized that the curse he put upon the field had in fact backfired into the greatest outbreak of carnal pleasure and sensual delight ever known by the nuns of Ireland, when the full weight of that came to him, he died. And when he died, the curse died with him. Sorry about that, ladies. And Mary and Myra's field, after that, it produced only potatoes, never penises. But ever since that time, penises are sometimes called Peters, in honor of Father Peter O'Connell. To this day, priests in Ireland wear pants, no longer robes. And Peddler Tim, who was the one that told me the tale, assured me that it happened exactly that way. And if we can't trust Peddler Tim, who can we trust? Sorry about that.
That's a true story.
That's a true story.
Are you next well?
I see it. I am the 10.
Brought up the rich earth of Ireland, the peat, the bog. So I have a tale here about the bog. Now the bog is a landscape in Ireland that's formed from hundreds, thousands, and millions of years of decaying plant and animal, humans, insects, ferns, and trees, all dissolving into the earth, into this deep, black, rich, peaty soil. And then that earth is harvested and compressed, and it's dried and it's burned for fuel all across Ireland. So when you're walking through a village in Ireland, there's a smell in the air. Has anyone smelled that smell of the peat burning at night? Aye. It's a smell you don't forget once you smell it once. It's the smell, for a lot of us, it's a smell of home. It's a smell of the earth. It's a smell of the homeland. It's the bog. So many people think of the bog as a place that just lies dead. Nothing to give to the body, nothing to give to the head. But take me where the heather and the moss grows and the turf lies, row after row, out there in the sun to dry. I breathe it in as I pedal on by with the kids and the dogs mucking together, bringing in the turf no matter what the weather. I'm a bog man, deep down, that's where I come from. I'm a bog man, deep down, that's where I come from. 'Cause I'm a bog man, deep down, that's where I come from. Oh, loops. Well, I'd love to see Arizona, those West Australian sands. But my heart belongs to those precious wetlands. Sure, no matter where your traveling brings you, well, the bog will never leave you. Some people look for God above. Down in the bog I found love. Where the heather and the moss grows and the turf lies row after row. Out there in the sun to dry, I breathe it in as I pedal on by with the kids and the dogs mucking together, bringing in the turf no matter what the weather. I'm a bog man. Deep down, that's where I come from. I'm a bog man. Deep down, that's where I come from. Think about it, you and your love sit by the turf fire, your arms around your heart's desire. Both of you staring at the Midland nights, shooting stars, satellites. Turf smell warms hearts. Then the hugging and the kissing starts. Bog love surrounds you. It's a beautiful home to come to. 'Cause I'm a bog man. Deep down, that's where I come from. 'Cause I'm a bog man. Deep down, that's where I come from. I'm a bog man. Deep down, that's where I come from. 'Cause I'm a bog man. Deep down, that's where I come from. 'Cause I'm a bog man. Deep down, that's where I come from. Yeah. Thank you. Down in the bog, right? That was a song by Luca Bloom, who's Christy Moore's brother. Christy Moore is a wonderful Irish singer-songwriter, and Luca Bloom is his brother, also an incredible songwriter. So, yeah. And you're all wonderful singers. Thank you for singing along. That's what music is about, right? It's not about a performer and an audience, but it's really a circle where we all come together and we all join our voices in and sing along, and we create an experience, just like with the story. It's all of us.
Well, the that Bogman song is so powerful, and it reminded me that we're all creatures of place, you know. And you know how it is. I don't know. When I first came to the Northwest, I just knew I was home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's some places speak to you. And my sister lives in Arizona, which I love, but I don't feel that same kind of resonance, you know. And in Ireland, from the reading that I've done, the old name for Ireland was Eire or Erin, and Erin was a goddess, and the land of Ireland was considered the body of the goddess, right? And the streams were her blood, and the air was her holy breath. And the land was considered to be filled with imagination. You know, harpers and pipers would go to the edge of the sea at times to hear a tune across the water. And some of the old harpers and pipers would say, I didn't make it up, I overheard it, you know. And the poets often went to the rivers to catch a poem, to listen to the singing streams. And the storytellers, they would go to the thin places to see if they could catch a poem or a story coming from one of those places. Well, anyway, I have a love affair with Oregon, where I live. You know? To me, that's my goddess, you know. And I wrote a little poem about her. Love of place is called topophilia. And if you add philia onto anything, it's love of that. So you could say, you know, a wishkaphilia, you know, tequila-philia, you know. So this is my little love poem to Oregon, and it's called Lady Topophilia. And if you want to do anything in the background, feel free. I trust you completely. This guy is great.
No, you guys were
No pressure, no stress, go.
So it goes like so, and you'll recognize some of the places in this story. Lady Topophilia, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love your hot, rugged, rocky, curvaceous, crooked river canyon country. I swoon at the scent of your John Day river country junipers, your hot Oahe sagebrush perfumes, your Ochiko mountain summer pine sap. But is there anything more beautiful than your springtime Willamette Valley lilac? Planted in deep, rich alluvial soils. But Lady Topophilia, I love even the odoriferous aromas you wear at low tide, beneath dark Columbia River wharves at Astoria, beneath which mammoth sea lions sprawl over themselves like drunken sailors, barking and howling and singing off-key on barnacled blocks of slimy riprap, while wind-whipped winter rains and deadly ocean sea swells keep sailors and fishermen anchored safely in bars from Warrenton to Astoria, shooting pool and swapping lies over shots and beers. But Lady Topophilia, I'm never home when I roam far from my Milwaukie home, where the Kellogg and Johnson Creek meet the mighty Willamette, birthplace of the Big Cherry, until I have made a pilgrimage to your shore, not until I have breathed in that heady concoction of rotten cottonwood leaf mulch, goose poop, and silty Willamette waters. Not until I intrude on the solitude of a great blue heron and send it winging ponderously upriver towards Willamette Falls, in whose waters mammoth sturgeon still swim. In that same place where Clackamas Chinook villagers fished and grew plump on eel and steelhead and salmon for 4,000 years. But Lady Topophilia, who could forget the nights? The nights when your black, buxom, columnar basalt outcroppings gleamed in silver moonlight, and far below your Deschutes River waters whispered and murmured and then broke free ecstatic through Whitehorse and Buckskin Mary and Wapanesha Rapids, then undulated through rolling Sherman and Morrow County wheat fields, cloaked in your gown of white winter wheat. But Lady Topophilia, I admire how easily and how generously your great Columbia River waters lift and convey mammoth potato and wheat-laden barges, tugboats, sailboats, fishing boats, sailboards on bright waters above. But how below your dark currents still remember, still trace, and still caress that mother lode of salmon runs, Celilo Falls, where your voice once sang in 100 full-throated choirs of cataract and waterfall, and joined with songs of Cayuse and Chinook and Nez Perce and Tenino and Yakima and more for millennia. Lady Topophilia, you are ancient and you are ever new. From your fecund Tillamook Bay tidelands to sunburned Steens Mountain to Albert Desert Sands, from remote Imnaha and Rome to South Wind at Port Orford to pastoral Sweet Home, you are the dew-lipped maiden. You are the ripe summer fruit. You are the wise autumn crone, and you are the screeching wild winter hag. And I am your love slave. I am your gigolo. I am your most ardent admirer, queen of my heart, muse to my soul, goddess of this land. My love for you never, ever tires. To our land. You know, he makes everything sound better. I'm just gonna
True story.
Brothers from another mother.
Yes. Oh, well, that was amazing.
Doing what? Oh yeah, sure.
He's telling a secret.
Okay, I'll do that. Take us where the song. Okay.
Where do you want to go now?
Oh, that was amazing.
That was incredible.
So,
Thank you. Thanks.
Oregon.
Yeah, I know, isn't it? We're so.
We're so blessed.
We are.
I've been loving this fire in here tonight. Spirit of fire, so strong, so warm, so nourishing. Keeping us warm, shining the light of the sun. I believe in fires at midnight when the dogs have all been fed. Golden toddy on the mantle, a broken gun beneath the bed. Silken mist outside the window, frogs and newts slip in the dark. Too much hurry ruins the body. I'll sit here and tend the spark, kindled by the dying embers of another working day. Go upstairs, take off your makeup, fold your clothes neat clean away. And me, I'll sit and write this love song as I all too seldom do. Build a little fire, it's midnight, it's good to be back home with you. I believe in fires at midnight when the dogs have all been fed. A golden toddy on the mantle, a broken gun beneath the bed. Silken mist outside the window, frogs and newts slip in the dark. Too much hurry ruins the body. I'll sit here and tend the spark. Jethro Tull. I love Jethro Tull.
Jethro Tull.
Far cry from Aqualand, huh?
Yeah, it's one of their gentle songs.
That's nice. You want to accompany me on something?
I would love to
Okay.
do that.
This is a little tale that Sana Lee asked for, and then for those of you who know Ireland, there's 32 counties. And how you doing out there? You okay? Okay, good.
Yeah, we're good.
Somebody once told me if you're a storyteller, you have to learn the difference between captivating people and holding them captive. I've got 10 more. Is that okay? No worries.
Not midnight yet.
Anyway, and of course, just get up and belly up to the bar whenever you need to. But in Ireland, there's 32 counties, but there's 4 traditional provinces, and each of them have sort of a unique identity. Ulster is the great province of the north. That's the birthplace of Cuchulainn, which is kind of the Irish Hercules, and they've always been known as a place of great courage, heart, and martial strength. Leinster, the wide plains of Leinster, that's the place of Dublin. That's where you see the sunrise first, and that's known as a place of commerce and prosperity. And then there's the great wild country of Connaught, place of knowledge and magic. And then there's Munster to the south. And that's the place, they say, of the greatest music and poetry, which is quite a claim to make in Ireland. You know what I mean? But in Munster, they say that there are, for every shovel, there are 10 fiddles. Just to give you an idea of the value system there.
Cool.
So here's a Munster tale, County Clare. There was a woman there, and her name was Biddy Early, and she was a folk healer. And Biddy just means old woman, but Biddy Early, she had been through 3 husbands, all of whom died, and she was loved by the people because she was the kind of a person that knew every herb, leaf, and bark and berry that grew all around her. And she knew how to gather things. And she'd make a healing lotion or a potion or a concoction. And they would say, Biddy can cure any malady of the body or the soul or the spirit. And she can also pull the dagger of a bad idea out of your brain. So she was kind of a counselor, you know. And people often came to her. They didn't have anything to pay with other than, you know, they would give her poitín, which was like Irish moonshine, right? They'd give her a sheep, a pig. And so her place became sort of like a combination of a pub and a counseling center and a restaurant, you know. And kind of like this tonight that we're running here. And, anyway, the people loved her. The priests hated her because she was such stiff competition for them. Because the people often would go to her instead of the priest. But even priests would come by at times in private to ask her advice for difficult cases that they had with people. And this was when Biddy Early was very, very old. Very old. And she was sweeping out her front room late in the afternoon, and a knock came to the door. Just like that. And she shuffles on her. She opens the door, and oh no, who was standing right in front of her? Death himself. That's exactly how she felt. Oh no. And you know, he has the black robe, and he's nothing underneath but bones. You know, he has the scythe, and he says, Grandmother Biddy Early, I've come for you now. Because you know that every person has only so many years and months and weeks and days and hours and minutes and seconds. All your times come to an end, and you're going to be coming with me now. And she said, oh, Death. She said, I can't say I'm not disappointed, you know. I thought I had more time, but the fact is I've lived a beautiful life. I've loved and I've been loved. I've seen so many beautiful things. And so I'll be coming with you, Death. Just as soon as I finish sweeping up the front room here. Because I'm not leaving a dirty house behind. I don't think you seem to understand here, Grandmother. I'm Death. And you'll be coming with me now. And she said, I don't think there's something you seem to understand here, young man. I've lived a long life. I've always respected the dead. I would expect a bit of respect from you now. I'm not leaving a dirty house behind. And if you were to quit being such a layabout out there and come in and help me, the two of us might get all the sooner out of here, you see. And Death said, oh, Jesus. Because he knew here was a woman you weren't going to argue with. So he comes and he takes the broom and he starts trying to sweep a little bit, but he's fumbling around. He's not used to manual labor of any kind, you know, fumbling about. And by now she's disappeared. She's in the kitchen. And she calls, she says, Death, and you're not much good at that. Come in here, make yourself useful. Take the knife there, cut up these potatoes and these carrots, because you see I'm making a stew. Because I don't want any food to go to waste, all right? And he says, oh, bloody hell. Fumbling around there, you know. Potatoes are falling on the floor. And she says, what am I going to do with you here, Death? I tell you what, put that down. Go to the front room, stand by the door. Because you see, guests are going to be coming soon. It's actually a party tonight. It was supposed to be my birthday party, my last birthday party. And I want you to welcome the guests. He says, you want me to welcome the guests? And she says, well, you can't sweep, you can't cut up vegetables. Get out there and make yourself useful. He's got the scythe standing by the door. You know. People are coming up on him. And he says, welcome. But after all, it's Ireland. People have seen far stranger things than this, you know. They eventually all come in, you know. And it's kind of like tonight, they're pouring pints and having shots, and after a while people are just chatting away, you know. And everybody's talking, well, save for death. He doesn't really know what to say to anybody, and they don't know what to say to him. He's kind of in the corner there. But after a while, the food comes out, and people eat, and they have the birthday cake, and they blow out the candles. And Biddy Early's grandson, he's about 8 or 9, he sees Death over there, and he just takes a piece of cake, and he walks up and says, I brought this for you. It's birthday cake. I don't eat any longer. I'm Death. It's for my grandmother's birthday cake. Everybody eats that here. Death says, well, all right. And didn't Death himself take a bite of the cake? But him being nothing more than bones, you see, you can imagine what happened. He just kind of bounced on his ribs and fell to the ground. Of course, who noticed that but all the children? And there was soon a long line of them. They all wanted to feed Death. And he was such a good sport. He ate everything they gave. He even drank the punch they served him. There were puddles of punch, piles of food in his feet, you know. But now the music started. Ryan and company were there, you know. And in no time at all, they were up and whooping and dancing and having a grand time, you know. Dancing rigs and Gilles, and everyone was dancing, well, save for Death, you know. But after a while, didn't someone walk over and just kind of pull Death out onto the dance floor? And he did the best he could, just kind of leaping and dancing around, you know. And then someone else took him and started dancing with him. And the night wore on and on and on until everyone in the whole party danced with Death, and he danced with all of them. And no one can remember a party of videos that went longer and later and was more fun than that party. And she'd had a number of parties. But finally it did come to an end, you know. And finally Death and Biddy, they bid farewell to all the guests that had come. And she turned over and she said, I want to thank you for being patient with me. And I'm ready to go with you now. And didn't she put her hand out to him? And didn't he put that cold, bony hand of his out to her? And he put it out, and he Grandmother, I tell you what, how about if I come for you next year at this time instead? And she said, well, Death, whatever it is that you want, it'll be fine. No, I'll come next year. I can't remember when I've had so much fun. I rarely get invited to parties. Let alone having people dance with me, you see. She said, well, Death, that would be fine. And so Death went away, but he came back the next year. But that year was a lot like the first year, save for the fact he was a little better at sweeping and cutting up the vegetables. Those parties went on for years and years and years. And the people of Biddy Early's town were known as being quite compassionate, quite understanding, quite interesting, a bit weird. And some would say, well, it's probably because we all dance with Death on a rather regular basis. And he's not the most graceful of partners, but he's certainly no one that we're afraid of. Well, that's what they told me. But they wanted me to tell you. There's another party coming up real soon. And all of us are invited. Biddy Early meets Death.
That is a good tale.
Okay, tell me. Okay. So we thought Ryan would do a song, and I'll finish with a quick story song, and then we'll call in. We want to thank you all, though. This is the first time Ryan and I have played together, and it just feels so great. And but you are been such a great audience, and you know it really takes all of us to bring these stories to life. Yeah. And thank you for bringing such a quality of listening to make it so good. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you
again,
so
thank you,
much.
Sonny, for putting all this together.
Yeah, so much love in this room.
So for this final song, I'd like to invite my beloved Kristen to come up, and we're going to sing an original together. Yeah.
Maybe I should just grab the
Yeah,
mic.
Just grab the
I
mic.
think
and
maybe
sit
I'll just
there.
sit there.
That's
Oh,
fine.
no. I'm
Wanna sit
just
here?
gonna sit down.
Oh, we'd like to see you.
No,
Come on,
that's okay.
Chris.
That's okay.
Come on.
Nope, I'm just gonna sit down here. That's perfect.
They're in front of the Get up there.
Get up there, girl. It's been worked out.
Your people want you, Chris.
She wants to look at Ryan.
She's gonna be right where she wants to be. So this is an original song that speaks to the importance of the dark time, and just the dark, rich, nourishing soil within each of us, and how really, when you think about it, you know, the light only exists because of the dark, right? And vice versa.
You make a little.
So as we enter into the dark phase of the year, that juicy internal time to go within and cultivate our own inner spirit and the light that's within the darkness of our beautiful body. This is a song to honor this. You can find me if you need me. At the outskirts or the center of the sphere. And if you find me, please remind me. No matter where I wander, no matter where I roam, no matter where I travel, I am home. No matter where I wander, no matter where I roam, no matter where I travel, I am home. Ba-da-ding, ding, ding. Ba-da-ding, ding, ding. Ba-da-ding, ding, ding. Ba-da-ding, ding, ding. In the distance, there's a harbor. Ship at anchor. Sun goes down, 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 down. It's time to rest now. Till tomorrow. Ship awakens at first light, stares across the sea, opens up her sails and she is free. awakens at first light, stares across the sea, opens up her sails and she is free. Kristen and I sing together as one root. That's our name. It's only one root. Oh yeah, we have a few CDs up here. Kristen and I, it was just a live recording from a living room concert like this a couple years ago. $10. It's not very long, it's only 30 minutes long, so take it if you'd like. There'll be a new one coming soon, I hope. Now we'll do one more song.
One little song to finish.
Do the next one on like a USB drive or something.
Exactly, yeah. No one does CDs anymore.
It's got the CD drive.
It's
a thing. I'm just saying, I want to get it, but I don't know where do I put it.
I asked him if I wanted to know if he had anything on 8-track. Some people get that joke. I like that. Thank you.
But Walkmans are having a comeback apparently.
Are they really?
I've got a nephew that is talking about that. That's the thing.
What's coming back?
Yeah.
Oh, Walkmans.
Tapes. Yeah.
I've got about 400 tapes from my Blind Rafferty in the basement of my house. So I'll hold on to them.
Gotta move them on out. Who wants one?
That's great. Yeah. I mean, Thoreau once, Henry David Thoreau once said, I have a library of 2,500 volumes, 2,000 of which I've written myself. So a shameless advertisement for me, I do a bunch of shows Celtic related around the Samhain time, and there's a card over there that will show you where all those are at. And also, if you'd like to stay in touch, just shoot me an email, and I'll put you on my list. I don't send out that much stuff, but once in a while when I'm doing performances. And if you'd like a copy of the poem that I read, just let me know and I'll shoot one to you.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So to finish, a little story song. This story song is told from the perspective of a fetching fair young lass. So you're gonna have to use your imagination right here. Anyway, she goes off to find, she's seeking a husband, and she actually finds a likely candidate. And she comes to tell her father the good news, and he has some rather disturbing news for her. It's called Johnny Be Fine, Johnny Be Fair. Well, Johnny be fine and Johnny be fair, and with me he longed to wed. And I would have married Johnny, had not my father said, Daughter, I'll tell you something that your mother never knew. Johnny is a son of mine, and therefore kin to you. But not to worry, because, there was Ian, and Ian was fine and Ian was fair, and with me he longed to wed. And sure I would have married Ian, had not me father said, Daughter, there's yet another thing your mother never knew. Ian is a son of mine and therefore half-brother to you. Oh, Seamus. He was fine and Seamus was fair, and with me he longed to wed. And we were busy making wedding plans until the day my father said, Daughter, there's yet another thing your mother never knew. Seamus is a son of mine and not an appropriate husband for you. Well, now, you never did see a lass so sad and sorry as I was. All the boys in town were me brothers, and me father was the cause. If this should thus continue, I will die a single miss. I think I'll go to me mother and complain to her of this. Well, but me mother said, Lass, haven't I taught you to forgive and to forget? So your father sowed some wild oats, there's no need for you to fret. Your father may be father to all the boys in town, but still, he's not the man who sired you. Lass, marry who you will. Thank you, everybody. We sing that on International Women's Day every year.
Happy Samhain, everybody.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
There's delicious soup, still plenty of food. I did see a couple other instruments that did not belong to Ryan come in the house, so there could be some more music that happens. Just anyway, I want to say a very special thanks to Stephen.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you, Stephen.
Anyone else? Their beautiful home that we live in, and to me this is like the epitome of a creative life. Absolutely. This home and this garden outside and this connecting room. If you haven't noticed, it connects two homes.
Right before the show, Stephen shared with me an apple that had been cloned since 1862.
Wow.
Right? It was a heritage lineage apple. And it was an incredible experience. So like that's time, because Stephen shared with me, I didn't know this, that apples, what did you say about apple seeds?
Apple seeds don't grow fruit that's true to the seed, so a golden delicious apple will not grow a tree that makes golden delicious apples.
Right.
And so I joined the CSA with a woman who's curating 100 heirloom apple trees. And the one that I gave you is the traditional apple